So, hey, let's highlight a stock today, right? That I'm actually making a play on, right? And I think that is a good long-term investment for the portfolio, right? Of course, we'll take a look at it technically, but let's talk about Visa, right? We all know about Visa, right? Credit cards, your debit cards, all types of stuff, but it is a large company with a huge market share. Does anybody trade Visa? Yes, no, maybe?
I have not.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about it. Visa, right? Ticker symbol V, right? Strategic deep dive, AI-enabled payments infrastructure, and growth outlook. So introducing the strategic focus of Visa on AI-powered payments infrastructure, cross-border growth, and blockchain-based settlement. So a lot of us, right? We know about it. We see it on our cards, our credit cards, and we sometimes we think that that is it. But when you really do a deep dive on Visa, right? Huge, huge company. This is one of those stocks that you might want to grab a hold of at a good price and just hold it, right? So let's talk about it. Um, Global Payments Network, right? Showcase Visa's extensive global reach and connectivity through a global payments network theme or abstract AI visual. Okay. Visa has an AI-powered infrastructure, right? It highlights Visa's focus on leveraging AI technology to enhance its payments infrastructure and services, right? So we see the theme here, AI, right? And so we believe in this group, we're forward thinkers in the Forex trade room. We're not scared of artificial intelligence. We're not worried about it taking all of our jobs. We find out how we could take advantage of it, how it could benefit us, right? Innovative fintech solutions emphasize Visa's strategic positioning at the intersection of fintech, AI, and embedded finance. Okay. So it's here. It's not going anywhere. It is already a part of our lives, artificial intelligence, right? So Visa's strategic focus on AI-powered payments infrastructure, cross-border growth, and blockchain, right? Settlement combined with strong financial performance and favorable macro tailwinds positions the company as a long-term compounder with a defensive moat and significant upside potential, right? Positions the company as a long-term compounder with a defensive mode and significant upside potential, right? So does anybody know, right, what they're talking about when they say defensive moat?
It was explained to me, but I didn't really understand.
Right. So you think about it, right? When you think about way back in the day with castles and they had the moat, right? And so why did they put moats around their castles?
To keep the enemies at bay.
Correct, right? So what they have, right, to protect them, that keeps them unique, that protects them against the what? The competition, right? So with a defensive moat and significant upside potential, okay? So let's talk about it at a glance, right? And this constantly changes, right? I did this a couple days ago, actually, right? So at a glance, 37.62 billion in revenue. Visa generates substantial revenue from its global payments network. It has a 53.4% net margin. Visa maintains industry-leading profitability with strong operating efficiency. Its ROIC, right? Visa is 27.62, right? 27.62. That's pretty strong. Okay. That is pretty strong. And what that is does anybody know what the ROIC is? Right? So let's learn some things today. No,
Honest
right? So go
return
ahead.
is R for
Yep.
return. Um,
Yep.
I don't remember the rest. Is return of I don't remember.
Invested
Yeah,
capital.
yeah.
And okay.
Yep. Yeah. 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 There we go. So So it's saying here, right, that they deliver impressive returns on invested capital, right? So return on invested capital indicating efficient capital allocation, right? So it tells you when you look at that ROIC, that return on invested capital, it tells you how much money a company makes for every dollar of capital, right, invested in its operations. So very, very, very good, right? And then we'll get into details, later overall when we're looking at these stocks, right, in regards to as far as the sectors, right? So we talk about the S&P and how it's broken down into the sectors. That's why we look at the spiders. So we'll begin to learn, well, it's got a ROIC of 27.62, is hey, that's good, but when you start to do it by sector, is that good based on the sector that Visa operates in, right? So you can really start to get down to the nitty-gritty details, right? When you're investing in things like that and you're researching stocks. Visa is present in 200 plus countries. Visa's global reach and platform infrastructure model enables worldwide coverage. Okay. Moving to AI-driven fraud detection and blockchain-based settlement. Visa is leveraging emerging technologies to enhance its payments infrastructure. It's positioned at the intersection of fintech, AI, and embedded finance. Visa is strategically positioned to capitalize on key industry trends and disruptions. Okay. So, current snapshot. Okay. So, looking at the market cap. Okay. 681.87. Okay. And this is June 25th was when I was doing the research on this, right? Price 651 at the time, 651.63. With the PE ratio of 34.03. The earnings per share is at $9.95, right? On that earnings per share. Revenue growth, and that's for a specific period of time. We'll talk about that here in a second. Revenue growth year over year, 10.19%. Net margin, 53.4. Free cash flow margin is 45.53. We talked about the ROIC. The dividend yield is 0.67%. The cross-border growth is plus 13%, everybody. Debt to equity ratio is 0.55, and the buyback program is 12 billion through 2025, right? So when we talk about the market cap at 608, 681.87, right? That's talking about, as far as the market cap is important because that's the total dollar value of a company's outstanding shares of stock, right? So, for example, if a company has 1 million shares of outstanding stock, and the stock currently trades at like $50 per share, for example, and its current market cap is 50 million, right? So a high market cap is important because it really lets us, it really shows us that the company has a very large presence in the market, which we know that Visa does. So even though, oftentimes larger, you know, companies might have less growth potential than a lot of startups, right? That's why a lot of startups you can get higher returns, but the risk is greater. Um, but your well-established companies, you think of stuff like Coke, right? We're talking about Visa today, but like Coca-Cola, right? But your established companies, are just like they're more able because they've been established so long. They have a large market cap. They're able to secure and lock down financing more cheaply, and they also have they tend to have more of a consistent stream of revenue. And they really do a good job. Larger, more established companies that have a large market cap of capitalizing like on their brand recognition, right? So that's why it's like Visa, right? We recognize what that is, right? Um, so when we look at that P to PE ratio, um, at 34.03, which is really good, um, is how much investors are willing to pay, for each dollar of a company's earnings. So that's a pretty high PE ratio. I think right now that 34.03 on that PE ratio I think it's higher. It's above what they're normally at. I think they're typically their average is around 33.17. So they're slightly higher, which tells us, right, that there's future growth uh, expected because investors are willing to pay a premium, for each dollar of earnings because of that anticipated future growth. Whereas a low PE ratio, not necessarily bad, but it may say that the stock is undervalued, or it could mean when you have a lower PE ratio that um, there's lower expectations of future growth, right? So the the exact opposite. Okay. So that PE ratio at 34.03 is really, really good. Um, the earnings per share is good. Is really, really good there overall for them. And this is important, right? So does anybody know why you know, the earnings per share is important for an organization.
For potential growth. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's usually a good indicator that a company, is more profitable and a better investment. So it helps, it helps us, right? Us as investors compare the profitability of different companies, and track the performance over time. And at $9.95, I think that was like through March 31 off of one report that I was looking at. I didn't note it down that number and when I researched that. But anyway, the EPS is pretty good. And so the revenue growth year over year is really, really good at 10.19%. Um, the net margin at 53.4 is really good. Because that's over 50, everybody. Because that's a good indicator because what that tracks is the percentage of the company's revenue um, that remains as profit after all expenses. And so when you talk about the overall profitability and financial health, of Visa, that's pretty good at 53.4 percent. So this is why like I've been kind of really focused in on this company. Um, the free cash flow margin is good at 45.53, which is very, very strong. So that's an indicator, right? When you talk about free cash flow, that's showing you, how much free cash flow a company generates for every dollar in revenue, right? So 45.53. So well-established company. Um, and that it just tells you, right, that their leadership and how they operate, is really stable, right? And that's what you look for is stability, right? And like you know, it's always good to know when you're in the sector, looking far out, right, where the company is headed. You always want to kind of get an idea where an organization is headed in the future, right? And you want to try to get an idea of how strong their leadership is, right? And so they're definitely poised for growth. We talked about the ROIC, the dividend yield is pretty good there. Um, you know, so that 0.67, pretty good. Um, and that's, when you talk about your dividend, I always like looking for companies to have a dividend because that's when a company shares, a portion of its profits with the shareholders. So that's good. When we talk about the cross-border growth, right, with Visa, man, that is really good at plus 13% because um, when you look at companies when they start out, they might initially, Visa's been around forever, but when companies start out, a lot of times they might initially only sell products within its own country. But when you talk about cross-border growth, that involves a company deciding to sell those products to companies to cut, to customers in other countries too, or even setting up factories and offices there. So, when you talk about it in super simple terms, it's just referring to the overall expansion, of a company's business activities beyond its country. which can impact the stock value. You see there that it's plus 13%, and that's good. That the equity ratio is 0.55. That that's really, really good for them. Um, and that's something that investors really pay attention to, because of course the debt, we know what that is, right? In our own lives, right? That, but in the company, that's representing the company's liabilities, just like it does with us as individuals. The money that it owes to other people, loans and banks, and or bonds issued to investors. I'm sorry, was somebody talking?
No, Ben, I was just thinking it gives you a sort of idea of how a company's doing and whether to invest in them. So this is quite a good thing to know.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you 100%. And because that to equity, it really gives you a good snapshot of how financially stable, or how risky a company might
Yeah,
be to invest in.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And so really, really good. And then we look at this buyback program, 12 billion through 2025. But I think when I was researching, even beyond 2025, I think it's higher than that. Um, and so for people who may not know like exactly what that is, we hear about it all the time. Like if you listen to the news and you hear about stock buybacks, and well, they say, oh, in this country, I mean, when this company uh uh they got these tax breaks and all they did was bought back stock, and increased the share value of the organization. Well, as an investor, that's not necessarily a bad thing for you, right? Because you know that's a company saying it has cash that it wants to invest to it, to return to its shareholders. Um, so that's almost like, think about it. So when a company buys back its shares, it's taking those shares out of the open market, right? But who else does that, right? When they want to move things, when we think about the Federal Reserve, right? And when they want to take money out of circulation, right? Think about that. When they want to pull money out of circulation, we know what that does, right? We know, like Swiss National Bank, we know here in the United States they do it with different assets when they're taking things off their balance sheet and things like that. So it's like that increase and decrease of cash flow in the market, right? And so we know that when they pull currency, out of the market through various mechanisms, right? It can strengthen that currency. Well, it's the same thing with a buyback. It's the same thing with a buyback. So in essence, right, when you buy back shares, you reduce the total number of shares available in the market. So with fewer shares outstanding, each remaining share, right, represents a larger portion of the company's ownership, which can lead to an increase in the stock price. Um, because that now, the company's overall value is spread across fewer shares, right? So effectively, you're reslicing the pie of the profit. So, on one end, when you talk about uh, wage earners and income and things like that, you're like, man, these companies, they were supposed to take, we talk about the trickle down all the time, right? They were supposed to take this money and expand and open new locations and create more jobs, but instead they bought back they bought back their stock. But they do it to boost shareholder value. They do it to signal confidence. They do it to, just like we just said, to improve financial ratios. Several reasons, right? They do it for tax efficiency. Um, because buybacks can be more tax efficient for shareholders than dividends, right? So as capital gains are typically taxed at a lower rate than ordinary income, you know. And then of course there's some drawbacks, right? Like we just talked about, when they do buybacks, it may not be the best use of the capital, but that's arguable. It depends on what side of the tracks you're on. Some people see it when they're buying back as a manipulation of the stock price, kind of artificially inflating the price of the stock. And then it's just a reduce on cash reserves, right? So their cash on hand decreases. Why? Because, you know, they're buying back the stock, right? So just a few things. So we talked about a lot of this, but Visa's right. Visa's base price target of 385 to $400 implies a 9.6% to 13.9% return potential over the next 6 to 12 months, driven by strong earnings growth and reasonable valuation multiples. So just some key things, some catalysts, right? Just a little quick summary, right? AI fraud analytics. That's Visa plus AI, VisaNet plus AI, Visa Direct, B2B payments, cross-border volume recovery, embedded finance APIs, blockchain, USDC settlement, right? So exploring the use of blockchain technology and USDC stablecoin for faster and more secure settlement of transactions. So think about this, right? When we talk about the blockchain and stable coins and things like that. So research stable coins, right? Like Google stable coins, right? And see the pros and cons and how this is impacting, right, the world right now. 10 to 12% revenue, 11 to 13% EPS growth, you know. So a lot of positive catalysts for it. So we talk about the macro environment. Go ahead, Joy.
So from my knowledge of a stable coin from a crypto point is like, say if my move is made and we're going into correction or reversal and I don't want to lose my earnings, I could put it in the stable coin because there it's like a protection because it only like the US coin is only like $1 or something. So it's really not going to make any major moves on major losses while you holding your money. Would that be the same
Correct.
thing?
Yep, it's kind of like had like that protection, right? It's a cryptocurrency, that is designed, to maintain a stable value.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's usually pegged to like a real world asset. So it's exactly what you're saying.
Would this
Um,
reflect as the moat?
yes, it could. Yes, it's a defense mechanism, right?
Okay.
Could be looked at as that, right? So, um, because the stable coin, it offers, it represents price stability, which will make it really more suitable for transactions, savings and financial contracts, right? And so that's is huge. Um, because the whole aim of it is to maintain a fixed exchange rate um to another asset. So yeah, so you can see it with the macro environment. Uh, the Fed easing support of global spending. Accommodative monetary policy from the Federal Reserve boosts consumer and business spending globally. So what are we talking about here, right? We're right on it, right? We talked about the second half of the year. Now we're talking about things like a rate cut, right? As early as July. That's some of the optimism that's happening in the market right now, which is why you're seeing the market rally. Like I said, we'll see what happens with the inflation data today. Um, Nominal transaction volumes rise with moderate inflation, so gradual and manageable inflation leads to higher nominal transaction volume, supporting Visa's revenue growth. Right, and we're headed towards that. Right, FX recovery and travel rebound boost cross-border fees. So the normalization of international travel and the recovery in foreign exchange rates increases Visa's lucrative cross-border transaction fees. Global demand for secure digital rails continue to expand. The ongoing digitization of payments and the need for reliable, secure payment infrastructure drive increasing global adoption of Visa's network. So they're ahead of the game. So the favorable macroeconomic environment, including accommodative monetary policy, moderate inflation, the recovery in travel and FX, and the growing global demand for digital payment solutions provides a robust backdrop for Visa's continued growth and performance. So Wall Street consensus, right? JP Morgan has it at a target of 390, Goldman Sachs 400, Morgan Stanley 385, and Barclays at 375. And when I did this, it was at like 351. We'll take a look at the chart on it. Risk adjusted price targets, the bear case 340 reflects the potential for regulatory pressure, FX headwinds, and weaker consumer spending. The base case for 385 to 400 based on the steady earnings growth and successful scaling of AI-driven fraud analytics. And the bull case at 425 plus assumes an earnings beat, rapid adoption of blockchain-based tokenized payment solutions. We do have an administration that is pro all of that. So that's where we are, you know. And so that's just the investment thesis overall. I think I messed up there in that last bullet point, but so that's it. So Visa is not just a payments company, it's a global AI enabled infrastructure for the future of money, right? So that is the research on Visa. We move over. Let's go take a look at stocks, and we'll wrap it up by taking a look at Visa on the monthly chart, right? And we can see that it's down to 346, but we'll mark it up to see, right? And this is where, so is it a good buy? Yes, but how we come in and we use the technicals is to see, can we get it to fit within our framework, right? Can we get it to fit within our framework and find a good spot to enter this trade? I have no doubt, right? If you're just investing, it is a good long-term buy, right? So you bought it where it is now, do expect it to move higher eventually. But as traders, right, when we put our trading hats on and we look at technicals, like, hey, is there an opportunity for us to get a discount on Visa? And that's how we use support and resistance. That's how we use the Fibonacci sequence,
Yeah, we're just
right?
marking up, yeah? Get your paper
Huh?
ready and I'll be with you. Sorry, Ben.
Yep.
Sorry
Yep.
about
It's all good. It's all good. So we'll mark up this monthly chart here. And nothing changes, right? We take the same approach, fundamentals and the technicals, right? So we'll put in this weekly support there. We'll leave that high alone that we see right up above until we get down to the daily, like so. Okay. So you can see, right? We're coming off some highs, all-time highs, right? In this, right? And so let's come down to the weekly. Let's put a weekly fib on this. See where we can enter level. Right? Think about that. And this is where we talk about just overall knowledge, right? When you look at, things like where it started and where it's at now, and this just shows you uh, the power of patience and the power of time. And this is why I tell young people, right? My nieces, my nephews who are 17, 18 years old now working their first jobs, you need to invest and you need to hold it over time, because time, I realized this, you know, started to realize that, my late 30s and 40s, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. But they have an opportunity now at 18, 19 years old, right, to have this knowledge passed on to them. Now it's up to them what they want to do with it. It's up to them if they want to, you know, continue to go, buy Lululemon and all types of stuff and not buy the stock, right? That's up to them. All you can do is tell them. But look at the power in this, right? So you go back to 2000, whatever that was, 2003 or whatnot. That's in our lifetime, right? At least from where this is tracking. That's in our lifetime, and you look at where it is now. So the power of time. One thing you cannot get back is time. And that's what I try to explain to all of the young people around me. Like, you cannot get time back. You have to do it now. Okay. You have to do it now with these companies, right? Like, they should be buying Palantir. They should be buying NVIDIA. They should be buying it now, right? So there's nothing here on this weekly chart. Fib wise, let's move down to the daily. And it's just like we have to adopt, and develop the patience as traders because it's time. Give things time, which is why your risk management is so important, right? It's so important as traders that we give everything time to develop. You know, I don't need to, I'm trading, you know, working, you're investing. Um, I don't have to try to make $1,000 a day, you know, crazy stuff, right? Don't even have the account, the size of the account for that, right? But oh, I make $1,000 a day. Like, a lot of it just doesn't make sense, right? Just understand the importance and the power of giving things time, you know, slowly, right? Invest in solid companies, right? We're checking back on Visa, and this is our daily setup here. Okay. So you can see we've got a bit of correction, and we're testing right now. Right? We pull back, but you can see we've got a 50% pullback. And let's see, 411 is that extension. So we'll leave that there for a while. For 1139. Leave it there for 11, just like that. And we'll see if it wants to hold here. Hour. We'll see if this wants to continue to make a U-turn off this level. Okay. So, this is one where we use the technicals to look for an opportunity to get in, but this is, one that, hey, plan on holding it and letting us do its thing. Why? Because where is Visa going as a company? It's not going to close its doors, right? So, so I guess you can never say never, but I doubt it. All right. So this is one that I would like to get a good price level on, and to get long and to see if we can get to 411 and beyond. All right. 411 and beyond. What do we have at 400? Goldman Sachs had it at 400. All right. We go back. Where's my Super Bowl case 425 plus, base case 385 to 400. We got 411. So we're falling in between that bull case, right? That base case and that bull case. So let's see what happens there. So that is Visa. Any questions over anything that we covered today? No? Ryan, anything before we wrap up?
Man, phenomenal, bro. Phenomenal, dude.
Appreciate it.
Greatly appreciate you doing this in this fashion. And great work, man.
Appreciate it. Hey, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. And always remember, hey, just don't count your pips, but indeed count your blessings. Have a good day, everybody.